It was a dark, cold morning at 6 a.m. in the endocrinology office, and they escorted me in with a specimen cup to a very small room about the size of a closet, an old 12-inch tube TV with an actual VCR underneath it, and the nurse strolled a cart from the corner of the room in front of me, which had some like 1970s porn movies on. Straight porn, by the way.
From the female side, the eggs was about, I think it was about 13 eggs.
Yeah, I think we were
12, 13 eggs that were viable.
Viable, yeah.
Viable. First is the extraction of the eggs, and then you know how many eggs.
I had to do a semen analysis. I got an email from Dr. Jabbar that said the subject line was Superman.
We gotta go. Hey Tahiti. Hey. We are, as you've probably been seeing on Facebook and Instagram, we're up in the Grand Canyon area. So it's been a busy week. The egg extraction procedure was Tuesday, and we really didn't want to say anything until we got the final result. Today's day 3. They said they were going to give us an update this morning. I haven't heard from them yet, but as of yesterday, there were 7 really good and 1 not so well. By day 5, they will let us know the final count, which they think is Dr. Jabbar said it went well and the procedure was good, and that we think it's going to yield a good number of eggs. We love you and we miss you, and we promise we'll do a better job of keeping you in the loop.
At the end, it was only 3.
And they undergo a grading system too, so
yeah, they got like a grade.
Some are like a grade A, some are a grade B.
In terms of legal stuff,
it was psychological evaluations on both of our parts to basically, do we understand the ramifications of this decision, what this means, what it's going to mean in the future, and then once that part was done, it was legal contracts with lawyers, and there was a lot of behind the scenes work that and it was not fast. It took a while.
So obviously those are a few $1,000s each of them just for that service.
So your family member did it in the computer room, just talking for an hour with the psychologist. And then we actually visited the same psychologist and went in person and had an hour-long evaluation. She basically wanted to know if we were crazy. And we're like, yeah, a little bit. And then the medical expenses started happening. So we had to determine if there were any autosomal recessive traits in our DNA so that when we mixed our sperm and egg, could that create a condition that made an unhealthy baby? So we started, having these tests that, of the hundreds of thousands of genetic disorders that are out there. So that was a little bit nerve-wracking. And so the combination was good.
If you have someone that's going to provide the eggs, at least for a gay couple is going to provide the eggs, obviously one of you is going to give the sperm. The whole medical process and the legal stuff, I think it could be around $20,000, right?
I was going to say about $25,000. Now, that being said,
20 to 25, yeah, definitely.
Because I'm a physician, my company had a special policy for physicians that allowed for partial coverage of some of these expenses.
Yeah.
So if you were doing it straight out of pocket, it would be even more. And then the ethical side of it, you think about, this is a test that if a woman were having amniocentesis to check the chromosomes of the baby, they would find out that information much later in the stage. We're doing a test that basically rules out genetic malformations of a baby that costs $5,000, and also, by the way, discloses the sex of the embryo. So you start asking yourself questions like, should we even be doing this? Is this playing God? Should this test should we not pay $5,000, not know the sex, and also not know if there's any potential genetic deformations with the child? Or
we wanted to do things naturally, when someone get pregnant, you don't know any of this stuff. Why wouldn't just combine things as good as they can, technology, and just go for it? But no, there was all these tests.
Yeah, we explicitly told them, don't tell us the sex of the embryo.
Yeah.
And it was an accident because there were 2 tests that were coming back at the same time. The test that told us if there were any familial diseases, and also the embryos. And so when they said, we have your test results. I said, oh, go ahead and tell me, what are they? And they revealed, oh, you have, 3 healthy embryos, 2 girls and a boy. We're like, whoa, what? Yeah. This whole process was met with a lot of very difficult decisions, from ethical decisions about, should I be playing God in this scenario, to needing to determine what sex of a child we should be implanting.
This side of the surrogacy stuff was literally the worst part because it seemed so technical and unemotional, which to me is the complete opposite purpose of doing something like this. I know when you do this sort of thing through an agency, the agency will collect a huge fee for the legal side of it, and now I really understand why. Looking back, and I'm not even the one that's having to pay for all the legal fees, I'm pretty sure that when you do it through an agency, it's probably worth every single penny because of just the headache that has to come along with it. Number one, the first thing that needed to happen is there needs to be psychological evaluations by myself as well as Javier and RJ. Now for them, from what they told me about their psychological evaluation, is that it wasn't nearly as detailed as mine was. For them, it was really just making sure they understood what they were getting into, made sure they understood the implications and sort of all of that.
Good morning.
Cheers with my hot chocolate.
Aloha.
We just finished the psychological evaluation. Actually, it was nice.
It was touch and go for a minute there, but I think we passed the battery of psychological tests that you're gonna have to undergo.
I know. Are you judging us? Are you writing down? Yes, no.
They're like crazy. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's it.
Have a great Saturday. Saturday? Yes. Saturday.
Aloha, and have a wonderful Saturday.
I met with a woman and I sat down with her and we basically had about an hour-long conversation. I'm a huge believer in therapy. I'm used to it, so I'm really prepared when people have questions for me about my emotions and mental state and feelings. So I felt like it went really, really well. I really, truly felt like I have a really good grasp around what I'm doing to my body, what I'm bringing into this world. Honestly, I'm jumping into the unknown, being okay with don't know what these emotions are gonna be, but I'll deal with them when we get there. I'll cross that road when we get there. She asked me a lot about my own pregnancies, about what it was like for me emotionally now, what my support system was. Did I have people in my life that would be able to support me through difficult times if I had emotional struggles? And I feel really confident about that with the family that I have and the friends that I have. And plus, I'm just a big believer in therapy, that I believe that if I was struggling, that I would definitely seek professional help and do what I needed to in order to get back into a mental space where I could be myself and be a good parent, a good mother again. And so that went really well. But the only thing that I had to do differently that RJ and Javier did not have to do was this 300 something long questionnaire. It was an online computer questionnaire, and the questions were all yes or no, and it took me probably an hour and 45 minutes or something to go through all of these questions. It was so boring, and I thought pretty much all the questions were ridiculous. Crazy things like, do I ever look at animals and want to hurt them? Do I ever just steal things for fun? I think they do that because they're really trying to find sociopaths or people that have serious psychological disorders. So that was, for me, a huge waste of time, but it was something that needed to get done, and it's sort of like a pass or fail thing. You either are, by somehow answering these yes or no questions, that they are able to determine that you are sane or you are not sane. And I passed, so I tricked them. I fooled them all.
Getting a letter, we basically started the process just saying, let's get a letter stating that your pregnancy and delivery will be medically covered under your insurance plan. Yes or no, black or white. Black and white, it was that simple. And that step took 5 months, 6 months? Yeah.
It's kind of new. It's kind of been the last few years, 2-3 years that it's been, people have been having kids. So this insurance have no idea. Some of the contracts that we sign, we still say Mr. and Mrs. But they don't know much about these processes in particular.
Kaiser in Hawaii especially has not had a lot of experience in dealing with gestational carriers or surrogacies. So we spent, oh my gosh, poor RJ and Javier and me, spending so many hours trying to get this letter.
And I mean, for perspective, it had to go to the president of my insurance company to talk to the president of the Hawaii insurance company.
I talked to my boss's boss's boss, and he gave me the okay to send an email to his boss, which is the president of Kaiser, who happens to be a gay man himself. And he's an advocate for LGBTQ families. I also CC'd my boss's boss's boss on it. They are going to get to the bottom of this directly. Anyway, so I just got off the phone with my boss. I sent a nice email to his boss, and we're going to see if we can get somewhere with finding some answers.
For them to actually come to an agreement about coverage, like it had to go that high up.
The woman at Kaiser who has been advocating for us, and she called me yesterday, and I had a nice call with her. She said that she spent the last few weeks trying to talk to the insurance plan and lawyers in Hawaii to confirm whether or not Tahiti you have coverage. And she said that it actually looks good. And they said that the entire pregnancy and delivery would be covered. They said there is a specific release form, and I know you've filled out like 3 release forms already or 2, but she said there's a very specific one that they want. So she's filling it out and sending it to you by email and asking you to fill it out or sign it, basically just sign it and then return it to the office, and that you can request a letter from Kaiser verifying your name and the coverages, which is that ultimate letter that we need. And then once you get that letter, then you can forward that to me, and then we can move forward.
And it just was this huge, long, arduous, just getting the same answer, nobody knowing, people going like, well, I've been here for 20 years and I've never had that question. And so you're just like, how is this coming up as like the first time? So we really were educating a lot of these people.
Well, you know, we had people telling us, gosh, you know, we've learned so much through this process because this was the first time we've ever encountered this.
The psychologist sends a letter to RJ and Javier's lawyer saying, this person is saying she understands what she's getting into, and they basically approve me for the process. So once their lawyer has that, then they're able to start drawing up contracts. The contract portion of it I thought was also really, really boring, really, really hard to get through. I spent 4 hours on the phone with my lawyer. RJ and Javier, they have a lawyer that represents them. I get to choose my own lawyer here in Hawaii, and they have to pay for it. So there is also that disclosure that has to happen that my lawyer in Hawaii is like, I also have to make sure that you know that and understand that RJ and Javier are paying for my fees, but I do not work for them. Just because they're paying my fee does not mean that I'm working for their interest. You are hiring me, I am your lawyer, and I'm looking out for your best interests. So basically, RJ and Javier's lawyer drew up their opening offer and then sent it to my lawyer, and then she reviews it with me. We send back any revisions. They approve the revisions or come back with like a counter revisions, and we go back and forth until we have an absolute agreement. Like I have my contract here, and I'm gonna quickly go through a few things. It's very, very long. I don't have enough time to go through with you, but all I do have to say about this is that I definitely recommend that even if you're doing a benevolent surrogacy for friends and people that you love and that you know, this part is just not, legally it's not skippable. It has to happen. Because even when we did this and having all of this stuff laid out, there was still the private sort of agreement between RJ and Javier and I about additional little things on the side that we had thought we had kind of agreed on, like on our own, that we weren't gonna discuss with anybody, but because that stuff wasn't written out, there was confusion. So I think that no matter what, like this contract needs to happen. And then also if you are having a private agreement about, you know, lost wages, about agreements after the baby's born, all these things about the birthing plan, all these sorts of things, I think you should definitely have written out, spelled out between the parties. And then even if you're not including it in legally, but at least you have something so there's no confusion. This was the contract. It is let's see, 46 pages with the notary on it. And it's basically a gestational surrogate contract. I explained before, a gestational carrier is someone who has no genetic connection to the embryo and the baby inside of them, which is the case with me. I am just literally its babysitter and its oven for 9.5, 10 months. So I'm just gonna kind of go things that I think are really important, just because some people always ask, like, well, what's in the contract? What's in there? If somebody wants to terminate the contract, it has to be done obviously prior to implantation. Like once implantation happens and there's a baby in there, the contract is solidified. Like you cannot back out of it. The train is in motion, that kind of a thing. It puts into place like travel limitations, which are totally understandable from a medical standpoint, when I can or cannot continue to travel in the pregnancy. We also put in there that basically like anytime I do travel, like if I was babysitting someone's child and I wanted to go on a trip, I would let them know like where I was going, even if it was outer island, just so like if something happened, they were like, wait, where are you? I don't even know where my baby is. So I told them like no matter where I'm going, I'll always let them know where I am, and I will never travel if doctors are recommending me not travel. Anything past 32 weeks, I cannot travel nationally. But then I'd also, because I do a lot of inner island travel for work, that I could still continue to do inner island travel because it's just a short half an hour trip here and there, up to about 36 weeks. Won't travel anywhere that there's Zika, obviously. Now there's the corona stuff, so that even put a little bit of a bigger barrier on my travel at the moment. So these are the few things that were interesting. It's like I basically agree in this because I am single and because I don't have a husband whom they could test for STDs as well as testing myself. They tested me. Part of the physical examination was testing my body for any STDs and all of that. But because of that, I also had to agree on here that I wouldn't engage in sexual activity with people that could be carrying STDs. So that pretty much limits me a lot, because I basically, if I did find a romantic partner in the next 9 months, which is very unlikely, I would have to explain to them what's going on. I'd also explain that they would have to go get tested in order for us to be intimate, which I think most couples really should do anyway, but let's be real, it doesn't actually happen that way, because it doesn't matter whether we used condoms or not. Like there are STDs that can be transmitted with a condom. So it didn't, like I basically could not have intercourse with or without protection with anyone unless they were tested. So it's in there. I've definitely adhered to it and agree with that, because if there's an STD that can possibly be passed on to their baby, like you would definitely want to make sure that you are doing everything in your power to prevent that from happening. So I'm also saying like I agree to do whatever is in the best interest of my body's health as well as the baby's health. Like if the doctor recommends a cesarean, I can't say absolutely not, I refuse to have a cesarean. As long as it's in the best interest of the baby's health as well as my own health and doesn't put my own health at risk, I will do whatever's best that I can in order to ensure that the baby is healthy and arrives safely. To abstain from all the bad stuff, no smoking, no drinking, no exposure to toxic chemicals, secondhand smoke. I agreed to all of those things. Also, when I go into labor, I have complete control over the decisions when it comes to medications, electric monitoring, intravenous injections, and any other medications. It's my decision because it's literally my body, and that any decisions post-birth of the baby coming out of my body are obviously in the hands of the parents. So all the vitamin K, eye drops, immunizations, all those sorts of things would be in the parents' control. This one, like reimbursement of expenses. So basically them agreeing that it's not going to cost me any money. They're paying for any co-payments, medications, doctor appointments, parking, like anything like that. What RJ and Javier did, which was really awesome, is they gave me a credit card. So I use that for all of the expenses related to the pregnancy, and then I just copy those receipts and send it to them for them to keep on file. So that's what we did. Is in the event of bed rest, most agencies that do surrogacy will have in place a lost wages. And most surrogates, if it's not like a benevolent surrogacy like what I'm doing, they will get lost wages for every doctor's appointment, travel time, and things like that. But RJ and Javier and I had that agreement that I would not be charging them lost wages for that time. Like I considered that part of my agreement to do it with them. We also covered in here about medical insurance. So because this is a benevolent surrogacy, I was still able to utilize my Kaiser insurance that I already have. So there was no additional insurance policy that needed to be purchased, which was amazing for RJ and Javi because it saved them maybe, I don't know, $5,000 to $10,000. Because if you had to purchase an additional insurance policy that, had a premium of $500 something a month, and every doctor's appointment had, a co-payment, every medication had a co-payment, all of that kind of stuff. And then plus there's the hospital bill itself during labor can be in the thousands of dollars for pre and post-operative care or pre and post-labor care. So that was amazing because they were able to really, really save that, because if it was through an agency, they would not be able to do that. They'd have to purchase an entire policy separately. But in whatever case, if for any reason there were any expenses that came about due to the pregnancy, that I still wouldn't be liable for them. So basically it just kind of covered our bases that no matter what, it's not going to cost me anything. That's all I cared about. Here's this stupid freaking letter that finally came from Kaiser. With my insurance, they needed a copy of this agreement within 30 days of us signing it. And I got confirmation actually from Kaiser that they received it. They called me, they congratulated me on what I was doing. It was actually really, really cool. They've been really amazing through it all. You would think that they would not be in support of someone using their personal insurance to do something like this, but they were actually the opposite. Very kind, very supportive, very grateful. They even thanked me, like, that's really beautiful what you're doing. Thank you so much. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help you. Kaiser's been really, really great through this. Even though the pregnancy is covered under my insurance, the moment that baby comes out of my body, the cord is cut and the baby is given to daddies. Now RJ and Javier's insurance kicks in, and now it's their baby and the baby's on their insurance. They will get their own recovery room. I'll have my own recovery room, and everything will be separate from that moment on. A couple things: there needed to be life insurance and disability insurance that we agreed to. For me being a mother, I needed to ensure that in the worst case scenarios, like if I somehow was disabled, paralyzed, lost organs, all those things, that there was insurance in place. And so that was in there. We got like $350,000 of life insurance in case of I died, and then also disability up to $250,000. So that was if like I was somehow partially paralyzed, if I lost movement, all those sorts of things. There's also dollar amounts for like if I had to have a partial hysterectomy, there's a $5,000 fee. If I needed a complete hysterectomy, I get $10,000. So all these crazy things that kind of have to be in there, because you have to think about those things. When it's your baby, you're just like, you don't even think about it. But when you're holding someone else's, these are like so rare, but they could happen. So it's better to have it like all up front. And that's really what your lawyer is there to help you go through all those things. Oh, this was another crazy thing about life support, that if for whatever reason I got in some horrible, crazy accident or anything like that.
If Tahiti is in a car accident and she is in a comatose vegetative state, we have the power to keep her alive until the baby is born, and then we have the power to turn,
And that's something I totally agree with. I'm like, if I got into a horrible car accident, I'm on life support, but there's a way to keep me alive, to keep the baby still growing, and then the baby can still survive and live a really healthy, wonderful life. Like, that would be what I would want. Post-delivery, I relinquish all my rights, parental rights. Like, obviously, that's part of this whole thing. I have zero interest in parental rights. Do not want to be responsible for this baby. It goes into, like, if there's the death or divorce of the intended parents, they had to name a beneficiary, basically, of their child. Like, if both of them somehow happen to pass away between now and the baby being born, who would they name to take care of the baby? So they named their person. And then also, this child is treated like any other birth child. So if there even happened to be a divorce between them, it's like any other natural parents, that it would be worked out between the two of them, divorce, custody, all those things of the child, but the child is both of theirs. And that's just something that would happen like in any other parent situation. That was basically it.
You have to have a cold mind, I guess. You have to like, okay, this is not gonna happen, but in the scenario that happened, I think this should go this way.
Yeah, and you have to stay calm and keep your wits about you, things that I am not good at, and I've lost my shit once or twice with this whole process.